My lords, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to Rimworld. This is episode 3 of the Tribal Ice Sheet Survival series, and as we start this episode, our colonist is still in his psychotic days, wandering around aimlessly on the ice sheet, and while he is doing that, we've had an event spawn when a walrus has wandered onto our map. However, this is no ordinary walrus. This is a caravan pack animal that has become lost. As we can see, it has a saddlebag there over its back. So as soon as Nitraro has snapped out of his daze, and if he is in a fit state to do so, I believe what we shall do is go and hunt that walrus, and we shall see what goodies he happens to be carrying with him. Obviously the goodies are only a side benefit. The main boon to all this, of course, is the extra meat and leather reserves that slaughtering and butchering the walrus will provide for us. However, we can't do that at the moment because we're still in this psychotic daze with no control over Nitraro, so we are just going to have to wait for him to bring himself together, and then we'll have to just hope and pray that the walrus hasn't wandered off of the map by that point. Obviously it's fallen to sleep at the moment, so we do have somewhat of a window to hopefully get ourselves out of this psychotic funk that we currently find ourselves in, and then get ourselves over there to, as I said, hunt down that walrus and bring it back to our little base where we can slaughter it. Okay, so as we can see now, Nitraro is no longer in a psychotic state, but we are still at extreme break risk, primarily because we are suffering from starvation. So he has taken himself off to sleep, so his rest meat is fairly well supplied, so I think what we'll do is we'll wake him up early, consume some aero fleet meat, have a quick game of hoopstone, and then I think, hopefully, yes, we shall go off and hunt that walrus that has wandered onto the map. We are still affected by the food poisoning that we picked up in the last episode, however that is now, it's just this moment abated, so that's excellent, so we don't have to worry about that. And as we can see, our mood should now start filling quite quickly, especially because we have the plus 40 mood modifier from the catharsis that recovering from a mental break always provides. So what we'll do now, as we said, we'll draft Nitraro, set it to drafted hunt, flag the walrus to be hunted, and then send Nitraro out there to take care of business. Hopefully this will be fairly straightforward and shouldn't pose too many complications. So the walrus is already bleeding out in 8 hours. It's suffered a lot of injuries from the various hits that we've managed to land upon it. And while we're out here, we've got some items of clothing that I've just dropped. The cloth toque could come in handy for cold insulation. And in fact, we have 2 of them. So as soon as we've got this walrus taken care of, we'll send Nitraro out there to haul those cloth toques back to our little camp, because I believe they'll probably provide increased cold resistance over and above the flop hat that we are currently have equipped. For now, however, we want to make sure we allow access to all these goods that have dropped on the floor. So what we'll do is we'll do an allow selection like so. We'll do the same for the cloth toques that dropped from the cargo pods. If I can find them, there they are now. And then we'll prioritise the hauling of all this equipment. Obviously the equipment will deteriorate while it's outdoors. The corpses will not, because they are frozen. So hauling the components and the items back is the higher priority in my opinion. We shall come back for the cloth toques. And obviously if you remember in the last episode we also downed an otter over on the western side of the map. So we do need to return for that at some point in the future. As we can see, our stockpile here is full, so some of the items have been left outside. Some of them will deteriorate, some of them will not. As we see, this incendiary shell will deteriorate, as will the beer. However, the plasteel, the silver, the jade and the gold will not, but the pigskin will. However, 4 units of pigskin, and it's very unlikely that we're going to be able to acquire more of that out here on the ice sheet. I'm not too concerned if that does deteriorate, because there's not much we can do with it. And as I alluded to a moment ago there, it's unlikely that we're going to be able to add to that stockpile of 4 units. So a quick snack, and Nitraro has indeed equipped one of the cloth toques. and that has added an extra 1 degree of cold insulation. Not the biggest difference in the world, but obviously every little does help. So now we can prioritise hauling the walrus back. I believe we only picked up one of the cloth tubes, indeed we did, so we may as well go for both of them. And we also want to bring the otter back as well. As we can see, however, like I mentioned a moment ago, the stockpile is full, so we are going to want to mine this out to expand it. And we are now suffering from hypothermia. It is negative 19 outside. However, I believe we've got the time, I should say, to bring all this gear back in before we suffer too badly from the effects of hypothermia. And hopefully we'll avoid a round of frostbite if we can get back in good order, which I believe we should be able to do. Okay, unfortunately not. We have developed frostbite on the nose, so we'll cancel the order to take the cloth tube to our hauling inventory. Instead, what we shall do is we'll draft Nitraro. He will now tend to his own wounds, which is great, and then we can send him off to sleep, I believe. We do need some rest, and the time spent inside our shelter will obviously help offset the hypothermia as well. So we've tended the frostbite on both our left thumb and our nose. So now we can send ourselves off to sleep, and by the time we wake up we should see that this hypothermia has abated. As we can see, we're in the last day of summer here. There are 15 days per month, and there is 1 month per season. So we are soon heading into autumn, which means the temperatures are going to start dropping. And this is now reflected by the fact that even with the steam geyser in our little shelter, the temperatures are dropping to around about minus 20 degrees. So holding this door open now is probably not the best idea anymore. So as soon as we wake up, we shall set the door to close, and that should help the temperature stabilise higher inside our little shelter. And that is obviously going to help us with our constant battle against hypothermia. However, as we can see, we do still need to micromanage it, because right now it's peaked at around 50 degrees in there. And if we were in there, yes, we wouldn't be suffering from hypothermia, but we would have the risk of heat stroke. So I think we'll do a little bit of butchering now. We do need some food. So we've butchered the seal and now the walrus, and that has provided us with quite a lot of meat stacks. And we've also got a increased abundance of furs and leathers available as well. Now, before we go off to haul the otter back here to be butchered, I think it's a good idea to have ourselves a meal. So we'll consume some of this pinniped meat. There we go. And now we shall allow him to wander off down to the western edge of the map to haul the otter carcass back to base. Once he's done that, I believe we need to start expanding our stockpile so we can get all these items here and here hauled indoors where they will not suffer from any outdoor deterioration. As we can see, fortunately, we've now fully healed ourselves of our frostbite. We do have trivial malnutrition, but that is decreasing. And we have developed a bit of an alcohol tolerance. Obviously, we are consuming the beer here, which is helping our recreation. But there is the risk of getting addicted. Luckily, we haven't suffered that yet. Okay, so I think it's now high time we expand our stockpile. And we'll just dig one tile in all around the edge, like so. Now, as we can see here, we actually have a marble wall tile, as opposed to marble rock itself. So there is a chance that there could be an ancient danger just lurking in this undiscovered area. However, we haven't had the notification of that, and you probably are well aware that when you approach an ancient danger, you do get a gut feeling, so to speak, about it, and it does appear on the screen. Given that the fact that that's not happened, I think it's pretty safe to assume that this is not an ancient danger. Okay, while we were discussing that, we've had some visitors who wanted to arrive and stay at the colony. However, they've opted not to because we have no guest beds. Now here we have three options. We can assure them of their safety and they will stay. We can send them away, which will only send this set of visitors away, and more may return later in the future. Or we can refuse visitors entirely until we have guest beds. And I think that's the option we're going to take here. We need to prioritise Nitraro's own survival before we start running any sort of ice sheet bed and breakfast. Obviously in the future we could have some guest beds put down. That's a good way to generate a little bit of income. Obviously also it's going to help Netraro's social skill as he has people to talk to. And from what I remember, they do bring their own supplies of food with them, so they're not going to be consuming our own rations. So that's not too much of a concern. But for now, I think we're happy not to have visitors wandering around. Okay, so we've gone off to sleep. I'd rather we didn't do that right now. I'd prefer it if we were to haul all this goods back into our expanded stockpile now that we have the room for it all. Okay, there we go. So that's everything brought back into our stockpile where it's safe from any deterioration. We've got the effects of hypothermia starting to build up, but as we can see, Netraro has taken himself off to bed once again. So we'll allow him to get some rest, and as we mentioned before, that's also going to help offset the hypothermia as well, because we're now in our heated room thanks to this steam geyser. Alright, so it's the next day, or at least we've woken up from our little mid-afternoon nap. And as we can see, we're about to go off gathering some more supplies that have been left out on the map. And I've just spotted over here we have a seal on our map. Now, it would be foolish of us to overlook this seal. So, while we're in this area hauling this cloth chook, I believe it's a very, very prudent idea to go ahead and hunt this seal as well. So we'll allow him to haul the cloth chook into his inventory, and then we'll draft Netraro, chase after this seal, and then we can hunt it. Okay, there we go. That's another animal to add to our stockpile. Oh, we have a Mega Sloth. That is brilliant. Mega Sloth fur is absolutely fantastic out on the ice sheet. It's got great cold insulating properties, and I do believe they do drop quite a high amount of both meat and fur. So what we'll do is we'll let Netraro return to base. We'll grab ourselves a small dinner. We'll allow him to wash, and then what we'll do, because we suffer from the hypothermia once again, we'll go back to our steam geyser. We'll heat ourselves up a little bit, just to drop that down to low figures so we can make our way to the far edges of the map without suffering from extreme hypothermia. And in fact, I think we'll have a quick round of hoopstone as well, just to boost and bolster our recreation meter here. That's always a good thing to do. Okay, that should be enough. And then once again, we're going to draft Netraro, head down to the Mega Sloth, and we shall hunt it. So Randy Random continues to be rather kind, sending all these wild animals onto our map. Especially after we had that little run previously, where we went several days without seeing any form of life. So I'm not going to look all these gift horses in the mouths. Instead, we're going to hunt them. Now, if we look at the Mega Sloth's stats here, it moves at roughly the same speed as Netraro, so we do need to be careful about that. And it does have a 50% chance to go Manhunter when we harm it. So I believe the best thing to do here is keep our distance from this Mega Sloth. That way, if it does turn Manhunter when we hit it, we have a safe enough distance that we can evade it. Okay, as we can see, it has gone Manhunter. But yes, because we've got this extra distance between ourselves and the Mega Sloth, we should be able to keep a good distance between the two of us, and we should keep ourselves safe. So we'll start retreating backwards. Hopefully we'll keep firing all the way. Obviously any successful hit we get is a bonus, because it could all slow down the Mega Sloth. As we can see, we dropped it down to 4.37, but I do believe that is still ever so slightly faster than ourselves. And of course, the other advantage of this is while we're kiting it towards our base, it means that once we do down the Mega Sloth, we don't have as far to haul it back to base. Okay, so its movement speed is now almost down below 3 cells per second, so we're clearly outpacing this Mega Sloth now, so we can comfortably return to base without any concerns for our own safety. As we can see, it's now bleeding out in 5 hours. It's got a whole host of injuries from our recurve bow, so I believe we are only maybe 1 or 2 successful hits away now from downing this creature. There we go, it was indeed just one more hit. So once we've got this mega sloth in our stockpile, we can tend to our needs. We're low on food, rest and recreation. So what we'll do, we'll have a bite to eat. We shall have another quick game of hoopstone. If we can get this to around 50%, I'll be happy with that. But in the meantime, we have a raid from a group of pirates. So we have time. They are going to prepare before they attack. So let's just jump and see what they're equipped with. Okay, so they only have a steel hatchet, so they're only melee fighters. So that means we do have the range advantage. So this fight shouldn't be too much of a challenge. But I wouldn't like to count my chickens before they're hatched. So we'll let Netraro have a quick rest before they start their attack. Obviously we can see here they have a fair distance to travel to reach us over here. Now as we can see here, their minimum comfortable temperature is only -5 degrees. It's currently -17 degrees, so the pirate here will start suffering from hypothermia, as we can see. So the longer they spend out here preparing, the better it is for us. Obviously, the worse this hypothermia progresses, their stats will start dropping, especially their movement and their consciousness. And that is going to give us a big advantage when it comes to the fight in a few moments' time. Okay, so the pirate is now on their way. No major concern just yet. We've still got time to allow Netraro to rest up. However, we are now awake, so while we are awake, we may as well draft Netraro, get into some sort of cover here behind the side of this little rocky outcrop, and then we can start taking shots. So we land one successful hit. The pirate's move speed is now 3.17. Netraro's is 4.31, so we have the speed advantage now quite comfortably. So now it's just a case of kiting. Oh no, it's not, because we've managed to down them quite easily. Right, we'll set all this to allow, especially the herbal medicine. That could be very handy later on. And we'll get all this hauled. However, first of all, we need to make some space in the shelter here. So we'll dig out a little further, just like so. We'll prioritise the mining order so we can increase our stockpile space. Okay, looks like we've stumbled upon some sort of structure behind our little stockpile here, and that warrants further investigation. So we'll do a little bit more mining. We'll get everything hauled over here that the raider was equipped with, including the raider's corpse itself as well. So now that we've expanded our stockpile here, we'll allow ourselves to have a quick wash, and then I think we'll go ahead and haul everything into our newly expanded stockpile zone. There we go. We'll have a quick bite to eat. And it looks like we've opted to do a little bit of butchery. Okay, so that dropped us 50 units of heavy fur. We could certainly put that to good use. Okay, so as we saw, we did collect 50 units of heavy fur, which we have placed. Let's find it. Where did we put it? Did we even... Is it still in our inventory? Okay, we're also carrying fox fur and chem fuel. So we'll drop those. We don't want to be hauling those around with us. And we'll actually get them hauled into the stockpile zone instead. Now, where is the heavy fur? Let's have a look here. There we go. 50 units of heavy fur. That's the one just there. Let's see what we are able to craft with that, shall we? Something to help deal with the cold out here, I think. A tribal poncho might be a good idea. It is effective at insulating the wearer, and it only costs 40 units of leather. Obviously, we have 50. What else is available to us? Let's have a look here. Thick pelt armor would be lovely for the cold protection. However, it costs 120, which we don't have. Likewise, the pelt mantle Costs 80, so we don't have enough to afford that. Okay, I think we shall prioritise the poncho. And what we'll do is we'll set into details here. We'll go to all the available textiles that we have on hand, and we'll set heavy fur as the only one applicable to be used for this process. So that means we will use the heavy fur rather than any of the other furs that we have available. And this should give us a lovely little pelt that is going to help insulate us against the cold. In the meantime, we have a snow hare up on the edge of the map there. So as we can see, we have equipped the tribal poncho now, and that's boosted our cold temperature down to negative 19 degrees. So that's putting us in a much better position than we were previously. So the effects of hypothermia while we're working outdoors should now be staved off for a little while longer, which means we can achieve more without having to micromanage Nitraro in and out of his shelter to get himself a little warmth. Now, as we can see, our recreation has dropped again, and if we hover over the main recreation bar here, we can see in the middle of the tooltip that we are now bored of dexterity play. So what we really want to do is provide an alternative source of recreation, and to do that we shall build the Game of board. We'll build it out of steel since we have plenty of that available, and we'll just pop it just there inside our shelter. This is obviously going to give our colonists two sources of recreation, so we can balance between the two, and once we start to get bored of one we can switch to the other, and that's going to help keep our recreation meter filled. There we go, so we immediately start playing the Game of and as we can see, our recreation meter is filling a lot faster than it was previously, which is amazing. Okay, so we've found our way into the structure that we'd uncovered previously, and I think this warrants further investigation. There may be some goodies in here that we can make use of. If nothing else, we can always deconstruct these wooden walls and wooden doors to add to our own stockpile. As we can see, we're now currently dismantling the roof that covered our initial stockpile. It's no longer required, so we'll just get rid of that. And we'll also deconstruct the 4 wooden support walls that we put down as well. Obviously, that's not going to add a lot of wood to our stockpile, but, you know, it may as well be in our stockpile rather than being stood out in the open, achieving not a great deal. And I think what we'll do now is, I think we've gone long enough without having a table and chair to eat from. So we will queue up the production of some furniture. And we'll go for a simple steel table, which we can squeeze in our base just here, as well as a simple steel stool. And this will remove the negative modifier from eating without a table. There we go. So slowly but surely we are starting to become a little bit more civilized, shall we say. We have a table and chair now to eat from. We've expanded our stockpile area just a little bit as well, so we've got more room for more goodies as and when we are able to acquire them. And in terms of our food supplies, I think we're in a very healthy position right now. And as I think I mentioned this in episode number 1, the advantage here of the ice sheet is this will be frozen apart from the summer months, which we have now cleared anyway. So from now until summer, we do not have to worry about the food spoiling, so we can consume it at our leisure and we're not under any sort of time constraints. The other added benefit from the stool and the table is it does allow us to relax socially, which will also help keep our recreation meter filled as high as possible without having to overburden ourselves with hoopstone or Game of Because as we saw a few moments ago, it is possible to develop a tolerance to them, shall we say, where they no longer provide the full effect. Now, it does look like there's something on the other side of this thin marble wall here, so I'm going to open it up and see what we can see. However, we weren't able to reveal much. So we'll do just a little bit more mining in this area, see if there is anything worth investigating through here. Well, we have an ancient lamp. Now, we can't reinstall this, I don't think, unfortunately, because that would have been a nice thing to have inside our base. But as we can see here, there is no option to uninstall and reinstall at a different location, so it's going to have to stay where it is, but that's okay. So I think this is a good point to end the episode for today. We've made some good strides towards our survival. We've greatly increased our food reserves, which is the biggest priority, of course. We've also increased our cold tolerance down to negative, I believe it was 15 degrees, 19 degrees even better, which is also excellent. And we've given ourselves a good selection of recreational activities, so this is all going to help contribute to a positive mood for Nitraro. Obviously, anything we can do to help that, to offset the chances of a mental break, is always welcome. In the next episode, we probably will go and hunt the snow hare if it is still around. The levers might come in handy, and, you know, even though we do have a good supply of food, and I wasn't sure about hunting it earlier, I've decided it probably is a good idea anyway. So all that remains for me to say is I hope you have enjoyed this episode. If you have done so, go ahead and leave a thumbs up on the video. If you have any comments, suggestions or feedback, leave them down below. I do read them and I do take them on board. And of course, if you want to help the channel and support the work that I am currently doing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, you take very good care of yourselves as always. It's ta-ta for now.